Hello, this is Margaret Ajibole, the STEM Positive Disruptor. And on Mia's conversation, I have a special guest, Jeremiah Toe. He's a chartered engineer working within the construction industry as a digital engineering lead. He'll tell us more about that. And the reason why we set up this platform is we want to educate, want to raise awareness, want to change people's perception and demystify what STEM is, that's science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. We want to bring the public into our domain. We want to show the diverse roles within our industry, but also the diverse people that work within industry, but also to enthuse our young people to think about on STEM subjects, leading on hopefully to STEM profession as well, or working within that industry itself. So without further ado, I welcome Jeremiah.
Hi, thanks for the opportunity to join the podcast.
Well, thank you very much for coming on board. I know you're very busy, and so I'm grateful that you've been able to take time out to have a conversation with me. So I know that from your background, you actually started working in Hong Kong for a while within the construction industry. So just tell us more about that, actually.
My background, well, I studied civil and environmental engineering at uni. I started my career after uni as a site engineer. I studied in the UK and then went back to Hong Kong to work. The great pleasure of being able to work on two quite large-scale infrastructure projects in Hong Kong. One is an underground railway extension project, and then the other is a marine viaduct project. So quite different projects, but both very, very interesting. And I can't dream of a better way to start my career as a civil engineer. I started in the site team working on construction management side of things, and especially a young site engineer, you get a good exposure of various aspects of construction. And then I did my design training as well as a few years in the temporary works design team. And then in my company at the time, a new digital transformation team was formed and I joined that. So my career slightly deviated from the more traditional civil engineering role to something that involves data and technology and digital transformation. But like I said, I'm really grateful for being able to start on site and start with a combination on site and design experience, giving me the background knowledge of where technology and data might find its value within the industry. The other thing that I find extremely fulfilling on the underground extension project was the fact that the area where the project was, as far as the term remote can apply to Hong Kong, given it's such a tightly packed city, but the area was relatively remote. As I worked on a project, I actually was able to see with my own eye how a large project, a large infrastructure project can transform an area. So I can see new shops opening and new buildings being built because of that extension of the backbone of a city that is the city's main underground. That made a huge impression on me as a civil engineer. It made me realize how much a privilege it is to be a civil engineer, to be able to touch people's life in such a significant way.
Yeah. Thank you very much for that. And it's quite nice to know that, when you started off as a civil engineer, which is your background really, and then you found that the work that you did was actually quite fulfilling for you. But also you moved from, it seems that you were given that opportunity to look at how digital data, how data can fit in. And so so the transformation was there, in a way it piqued your interest to say, okay, this is good. I enjoy what I do, but I think it's a new level as well. Also, I think in a way, when you think about it, technology is everywhere and it's embedded in so many different things that we do. And I think in a way, it was a good career move to go into digital data. So can you tell us more about that? What does that involve?
Yeah, of course. I've had quite keen interest in data and technology anyway, before that shift in my career. And that was an opportunity that opened some doors for me. But even before I actually transferred to a different team, I remember using computer-aided design software to model what a finished building would look like. And I was doing that in my own time. The drawing allowed me to better visually appreciate the interfaces of the structure. At the time, we're still very much constructing based on 2D drawings. So being able to visualize the structure three-dimensionally allowed me to, for example, identify clashes in openings. So you have a drawing of a wall or some sort of like a 2D. What might not be obvious on a 2D drawing is that the opening on a wall might sit on the interface with another wall, for example. But given that that's how it's traditionally represented in 2D drawings, you might not notice it till you actually build this on site. So I think that's one example of how technology can help us avoid mistakes down the line. That's a very primitive example, but you often hear people talk about like virtual rehearsals with 3D models nowadays, which in a way is an extension of what I was describing, being able to look at how things interface or move in the 3D space before it actually happens. We'll identify
issues before it happens.
That can be avoided.
And I think that's the great thing about technology as well, isn't it? It helps you to see things before you actually transfer into that tangible space. It's about seeing what could possibly happen, what are the errors that could, and what do we need to do? And I think that's why technology is so great, because in a way you actually see something virtually before you move into that real world scenario. And I think that's a great thing about technology itself. But and thank you very much for that. You talked about data, because we again, what we want to do is enthuse more young people to consider STEM or science, engineering, the whole scheme of things.
Yeah.
Well, we talk about technology and engineering itself mostly, because that's where we are, where the construction industry is. And as a digital engineering lead, I mean, it's quite interesting to know what you do, and I can see I can understand what you're saying. So working within the construction industry, how easy is it? Because one of the things we want to do, we wanted to understand. It's not so much as know the detail of things. It's more of an overview. What are the kind of issues or areas that you feel that could be improved? Because again, young people, when they look at engineering or look at technology or look at science or mathematics, they think, oh, it's so boring. There's only nerds that work there. But you show that you actually enjoy what you do, which is great. So what are the things that you see as errors, or not errors, sorry, issues that you, based on your experience, that you feel could be that can be addressed? Because again, we're looking not just for now, but the projection of the future for young people, but also the industry at large. What are the things that you see? Because you do quite a varied different activities or tasks within your job itself. And so tell me more about that. So the issues or areas of needs that you feel have to be addressed.
Yeah, when we come across mentions of construction projects on the news, very often it'll be about delays or projects going over budget and things. This is where I trust data will make the largest, most needed impact to construction. Linking back to the example I talked about in terms of using 3D software for rehearsal, there's a short-term benefit. A lot of times these digital tools, be it a BIM model, a visualization tool, or digital device, there's a short-term benefit. So 3D visualization is so that we can rehearse before the real thing happens.
Indeed.
But there's also a longer-term benefit, which is to be able to capture these the data associated with the activity, be able to record a digital trail of activities or exchanges or data transfer. And then using that to continue to improve how we manage a project, how we carry out certain activities, creating the kind of data feedback loop. So using tools to generate data and then using that data as a form of experience, right? I always think about data as a kind of a digital memory or digital, like digitized experience, where when we use the term experience, or we're often referring to people's memory, how I've come across this problem before, and therefore next time when I come across the same or similar issue, I know what to do. But that's stored in my head, and if I've left the project, which is the nature of construction,
it's common,
right?
exactly, because people move around, don't they?
Exactly. So when the project ends, you move on to another project, and then some of that experience is
lost.
Either lost in one way or another. So having the data is to capture that experience in a way that's more accessible to new joiners of the industry, but also more accessible to other digital tools. So using digitizing that experience so that we can use that data to generate different options next time we come across a similar problem.
Go on. Sorry, I was just going. I was just going to say. I mean, really, what you're saying is that with the digital, it allows you to capture, and it's stored. And I think in a way, it helps you as that person or individual, not just you, but people in general. Because one of the things that we do say is that we need to document whatever it is, so it's lessons learned, so you can learn from past experience, use that experience to build on, so you can do things more efficient and more in an improved way. So in a way, what you're saying is that where digital technology is concerned, when you do the drawings using CAD or the different softwares you use, your 3D, it means that that information is stored somewhere, and so you're able to retrieve it whenever you need it, and then use it either to revisit whatever you're doing, or to say, well, these are areas that we think needs to be improved. We need to do this. We need to do that. Am I correct in this?
Yes. Great summary. So being able to store the memory, the experience, being able to transfer the experience, being able to exchange that experience between different parties. So I don't necessarily have to be directly talking to someone. In the same place to be able to.
So does that mean you use BIM, building information modeling? Is that what you use as well? Do you use as part of your?
Do.
Oh, okay. Okay, because that's another way. So I mean, no, only because I'm very much aware of that, and I know that that's something that the construction industry is quite it's been in where the government in the UK are saying this is something, a requirement, you need to use it. So it enables like different parties to be able to get involved. So the different levels of needs are able to have that input on a live basis. So so I'm very much aware of that. So and thank you very much for that. So what basically, because we've only got like very short time, and I want to be very succinct. What would be your recommendations? Because there are lots of things that could be done better. But what, from your perspective and your experience, what are the things that you feel that the construction industry can benefit based on your experience and moving forward for now and for the future? Very short, very briefly.
I think maybe especially for the audience of the podcast, at a personal level, I would encourage people to learn about coding, learn about data. I think it's a good subject. It's a fantastic hobby to have, but it supplements your core engineering subject, or engineering or not. I think learning computing, learning coding will benefit you, almost like an alternative soft skill.
But what you're saying is that, look, technology has infiltrated all the industry. It gives you that edge over those who don't have that skill base. And I think in a way, what you're saying is that, look, as an individual, it's beneficial for you to look at data, look at coding, look at the different elements. You don't have to be a coder, because not everybody, that's not their fancy. But I think you should be at least have the basic understanding of what's going on in that world in order to equip you so that you can then make you, when you come into the industry, you're not lost in that we're waiting for someone else to tell you what to do. You have a basic understanding of what's going on, and it helps you as well develop and helps you to move in place, because technology is there. You cannot get away from technology. You need, if you want to be part of it, then you have to build up your skill set in order for you to fit in, or at least have some experience about an understanding as to what's going on.
Yeah, and it's fun as well. I think once you learn a bit about coding, you find applications in anything you do. I use that in my own personal project outside of work as well. It's a great tool to supplement anything that you do.
Indeed,
So
yeah, indeed. And so, one of the things, what about the industry itself? Is there anything, just very short and very brief, what is there anything that you feel the industry should consider? Because it's a digital world. We live in that. We have to we need to improve the efficiency of how we do things within the industry itself, avoid reworks and everything else. And is there anything that we should be considering, like robotics, or I don't know, is there things that we should, not very briefly, because again, we just want to have some, you don't have to have any recommendations if you don't feel there's a need. But I think it's quite nice to know what should we be looking for in the future, now in the future, very briefly.
I think embrace the technology. I think it's Contech is a term now. It's a construction technology. Embrace the benefit that Contech now brings, but also think about how the data can be used in the long term for continual improvement. When I started my career as a young engineer, I was introduced to the concept of plan, do, check, act. It's a learning cycle.
Yes, indeed.
Data now drives this cycle. It's almost like the water that drives a wheel. Embrace the technology for the immediate benefit, but also think about how the data can be used in the longer run, which enables like robotics, like you mentioned. So without digital data, robots has no awareness of what the environment is, and there's very limited functions that a robot can perform. But data is the future that change that.
And if you think about it, artificial intelligence, again, uses data as well. There's so many emerging technologies that we need to embrace in our industry. And I think in a way, it's just been, as you're saying, being aware, embrace it, and don't be afraid of it, because you may lose the traditional roles, but it creates new roles as well, and which again we need to embrace, because nothing stays the same. And change, you can't get away from change, and I think he's understanding that, and I think that's what you're trying to explain, and this is what you're explaining as well. And I think it's important for the construction industry to take that on board, and the different people that are involved in that. It's not just the big corporations, but also the very small companies that are doing, the whatever level of need they're feeding or activities they're required to do. Technology is here to stay. I mean, of course, it's just an enabler. It's not the end. It's not the beginning or the end, but it enables you to do.
It's a tool, right? Yeah.
It is indeed, and that's what's basically what you're trying to say. Yeah. So Jeremiah, I'm so grateful for you to come on my platform. So grateful for you to explain to us your journey. And it's about enthusing our young people. It's also bringing the public into our domain, for them to see what we do and the diverse roles that we have and the diverse people that work within our industry as well. But it's also about, like, if parents are trying to help their children, they can say, oh, did you know that in this industry you can do this, you can do that? And that you are a prime example of that. So you're a role model that young people aspire to be like. Even, of course, be like you, but maybe surpass you as well, because again, nothing stays the same. Like you're developing, they're developing as well, and new technologies coming in, and they look at different ways to make the industry more efficient, more effective in their delivery, and also prevent all those reworks that we complain about all the time. So thank you very much for your time.
No, thank you.
You've been very busy, but I am grateful that you made time for us and the conversation as well. So thank you.
Oh, pleasure. Like you said, there's an increasingly diverse range of roles that the construction engineering industry offers. my own personal experiences. It's something I'm happy to share, but not saying that anyone should follow my particular career path, but it's a good example of how, if you like STEM, you like your science and maths and engineering technology, there are different roles that you can choose to take on. There are different opportunities that will open up for you.
And you're quite right, because when you think about it, you started off as a civil engineer, and I think in any role that you start off with, you never stay in that role forever, because it evolves all the time. There are new opportunities, and it's up to us as individuals to be available to try new things as well, because again, it builds you up. It also helps the industry. It helps you come to be more effective, more efficient, help with the profit margin as well, with productivity. So again, as you said, you started off one role, but now you've moved, you've evolved. We are still within the same industry, but you're actually doing new things, or still, adding value where you are currently as well. But using digital technology as a way to bring change into the industry as well. So again, look, I'm grateful, Jeremiah. I know. I hope you enjoyed.
It was fantastic. So maybe one last thing, just to add to what you just said. So as I mentioned, I'm trained as a civil engineer, but what I'm also particularly grateful for is the availability of information and like proper training, like good quality training material that's now available for free online that you can access. I know you do provide extensive notes with your podcast, so I'm happy to share some of the resources that I've used that I've found and that supported the change in my career. That opened up new opportunities for me.
Please do. Again, exactly. Please do. Again, that's why we set the platform up, so that people can share information, so we can educate, raise awareness, change people's perception, demystify STEM, so that people can be encouraged that there are sources out there, resources out there that people can tap into as well. So thank you very much for that. I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Thank you again. Please listen to our podcast and share the message as well. Thank you.